Yeah, we're live. 7-Eleven. That reminds me, I need to get something over at the store. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the 7 p.m. ish live feed. If you are new here, this is the live feed that we do where I have a question and answer after I go through some topic of discussion. And if you're here and you want to ask questions, you can ask questions about anything that you want. Doesn't have to be on the topic of discussion. Because I just posted a video up today on tuning, changes in air fuel, changes in timing. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about comments that were made about that, and basically why I tested this on an NA combination on the L33 5.3 liter all aluminum junkyard motor, and why we couldn't do the same thing under boost, why I couldn't run the same test under boost. And I'll talk about the limitations of why that wouldn't be able to happen. But that's what we're going to do tonight. Obviously, you guys are all welcome, and please come and ask questions if you have questions. If I don't have answers to them, we got lots of sharp guys here on the live feed that probably could also answer some. So if I can't do it, I'm sure that they'll can. And if not, we'll get together and bang our heads and talk about simple golf ball ports and silly stuff. We'll have a good time at the very least. So the video that I put up today was tuning. And I've told people many, many times over and over again, they ask me, hey, Richard, will you build my motor? No. Will you tune my motor? No, I won't do either one of those things. But I do tune all of my stuff on the engine dyno. As long as I can get the stuff installed and get it running, changing the air fuel, that's a couple things. Changing the timing, that's a couple things. And what I like to show is because there are a lot of people out there that will incorrectly inform you, maybe is a good way to put this, that there's some magic behind this. That, oh, I got to throw the tune on it. No, you don't. There's not that. The magic in tuning is all the stuff that I don't do. The magic in tuning is not power. It's easy to get the power out of it. The magic in tuning is getting it to run in every gear, getting it to start, getting it to cold start, getting it to hot start, getting it to have boost in every gear that you want, doing all of that stuff, having it drive around, get good mileage, not overheat, not be cantankerous. All of that stuff is like the magic part of tuning. That has nothing to do with the power. But there will be people out there that tell you that, oh, no, I could squeeze a little bit more out of it. There's really only two things. There are two major parts of tuning: air fuel and timing. That's why when I do these kinds of tests and these kinds of videos, and I've done other ones before, I've done this test a lot, and I usually do it on an LS, although we did it for Engine Masters also. I think we did it on a small block Chevy. And the same kind of thing. We did a big spread from, and I think we did it on a carbureted motor, because I think we threw like massive amount of jet at it, and then turn the distributor basically. That is an easy one on the carbureted deal. We did the same thing. We made it 9-1 in that case, and then we took out, I think when Freiberger was suggesting we do this, he took out like 20 or 30 degrees of timing. So the thing made no power. But it's a good test. It shows you what's going on. And that's what I wanted to do on this. Is we get, in fact, I had a comment that I just read before I got on here. Somebody saying, well, I don't know how you only see that much difference. So I went from 10-1 to 12.5-1 or 12.8 or whatever, because there's some specific number that where it makes the most power at. There's not. I went from here to here and I picked up 47 horsepower or 50 horsepower, whatever the number was. I'm not going to tell the guy that didn't happen, because maybe it did. I just don't understand how it's even possible, because I've run this test, this specific test where we just vary the air fuel lots and lots of times. And I've also done lots of tuning on LS motors where we've changed this air fuel. I haven't put it in a video form or put it in a test form, but when we start rich. So we start at 10-1 or 10.5-1, and then start stripping fuel away and go, okay, now it's 11, now it's 11.5, and now it's 12, whatever. And then we see the same thing every time that I do it. When I start taking away fuel, you tune it and go, oh yeah, it's 11.8. Oh, well, we're going to get to 12.8. Man, we're going to pick up 20 or 30, or in that case, 47 horsepower. That doesn't happen. That has never happened on any LS motor that I've ever run. We don't ever pick up any sort of big gains. We pick up a decent gain going from, 10-1 to 12.8. But I think that was only 10 or 12 horsepower. It was not very much. Not 47. I've never seen that. You'd have to get it way down into misfire for that to be a problem. And that's kind of what I'm suspecting is what was happening. because I just have never seen that. And I haven't, if I had just tested it one time, I would say, yeah, let's do more testing and figure that out. But particularly on the LS, I've run it. I mean, I've done this kind of sweep hundreds of times, because every time we put a motor on, I do that on every motor that I run. So, and it always does the same thing. And yet I keep doing it. And it's the same thing with timing. Now, the air fuel didn't change things very much. That's why I always tend to run them a little on the rich side, because they're going to be a little bit safer. With the timing, it's a different thing. We did see changes in power, but going from 29 or 30 degrees down, if you like take 2 away, if you're starting at 30 and you go to 28, you'll see almost no power change, because that's right in the area where it's pretty good. And if we get to a point, because people, well, why didn't you try 35 or 36? Well, because we'd already gotten to the point where when we're adding timing, there's no more power to be gained. We know that when we go up in successive steps by 2 degrees or 1 degree toward the end, that we stop gaining power. And when you get to that, you don't need to go beyond that, because the only thing that's going to happen beyond that are bad things. You're not going to not gain anything for 2 or 3 or 4 degrees and then all of a sudden start gaining some again. That's not how timing works. We had already reached to the point where the thing was making the power that it made. Plus, having run literally hundreds of LS motors, this is where they want to be. One guy mentioned something very important, and I should bring this up. When he's running his carbureted LS with a carburetor and an MSD ignition controller, he was running 32 degrees. Yes, the MSD box, in fact, all of the MSD boxes basically we've kind of determined they have about a 2-degree delay in them. So that's actually not 32 degrees. That's actually 30 degrees. And we know because we've run this comparison a bunch of times. So that's right near where, at any rate, it's right where it needs to be. And I don't even care about the number. With the MSD, when we're running it carbureted, we do the same thing. We start adding timing, and you can go to the viewer and raise the timing, do whatever you want. We just raise the timing until it stops making power. And we do that with air fuel too. And with air fuel, we have a big range of where it's going to make the same power. With timing, you have a little range. And then as we saw, we went from 29 to 24 and we lost power. Then when we went to 20, we lost even more power. Then when we went to 17, we lost a lot of power, because you get to the point where it's no longer efficient at all, and it's losing most of its power up top, because as you go up in engine speed, that's where you need more timing. So down low, and in this test, so people know, when I was doing it, we have a slight curve in it of, I don't know, 3 or 4 degrees, let's say, of the curve, and then it gets up to 4,500 or 5,000, and then it's kind of flat all the way across. But what I was doing is grabbing the whole curve and moving it down the same amount. So when I went down from 29 to 24, we went 5 degrees down low too. And as you can see, it made less of a difference down low, moving the timing that much. That's because down low, it doesn't really need that much timing. It gained a little bit from that, but in actuality, I probably would have revisited that and maybe taking, maybe been less aggressive on my curve down low. And typically we do that, and especially on boosted motors. And the reason that I do that on boosted motors is not because I think that might be ideal on the street for transition or something, but on the engine dyno, when we load it, we roll into it and the dyno grabs it, and then it applies a stationary load as a starting point. So you're running up against a stationary load as you run at wide open throttle. If you started at 3,000 RPM and you've got boost, it never experiences that anywhere in the real world. So we usually are soft on timing there so that it doesn't hurt itself. And then you push the button and release it, and then it starts going, and then the timing comes in, and everybody's happy. That's something I learned a long time ago after breaking motors, that you don't have to have all the timing in during the initial load point. That's just not a good idea. It's just not safe. So, adjusting the air fuel the way that we adjust it to try to find out what the motor wants. We let the motor tell us. The dyno is the tool, and then the motor tells us, yes, I like that. Yes, give me more of that, or give me less of that. I like that. I don't like that. It tells us, and we just do it accordingly. Fairly easy, type on the computer, take away fuel, add fuel, take away timing, add timing. It's all very simple. There's not magic to that. And that's what I wanted to show. If you run this much timing, this will happen. And so if you're doing tune and, and you don't have all the timing in that the motor can use, then you're going to leave some on the table. And that's where a guy says, oh, I throw the tune on it. But you have to be very careful. In our like sterilized environment and perfected environment on the engine dyno, where we have cold air and we have cold water. Two things that are going to make this thing respond to and more aptly tolerate timing more than it would in the vehicle. If you're not getting cold air, that's bad. If the water temperature is hotter, that's bad. If the oil temperature is hotter, that's actually good. But if the water temperature is hot and you're grabbing hot air from it, all of that's bad. And what will happen is you tend to be able to run less timing in the car. Now, if you had enough octane and you let the thing cool off and you had cold air going to it, it would run better at the timing that we run on the dyno. And we see that all the time from guys tuning stuff and running at the track. If they are not sitting there letting their thing idle and doing the way that you would do when you're driving around, if you're pulling up to a light, next to another guy, whatever that you want to run, and everything's hot, that's a different situation. But if your hood's open, you're in the staging lane, you bring it up, and all you do is heat the tires up and then make a run, and the thing is still fairly cold, you're going to be able to get away with, and you're going to make more power with more timing than you would if the thing was hotter. So that's very important. When Eric and Ish do the tuning on the chassis dyno for the street, they don't run the timing that we do on the engine dyno. Because like I said, everything that we do is, it's nice and cold and it's nice. But the thing is that when we do that, it also allows us a safety margin so that we can, on an NA motor, even something that has a reasonable amount of compression, 10 or 11 to 1, we run it on 91. This still allows us to run all the timing that the motor needs. It doesn't gain any more power with any more timing. It allows us to run full timing and even go a little beyond that, which is why I only go 1 or 2 degrees past that to find out, oh, it stopped making power. We're good. You don't want to get into detonation. And so, but it being cold like that allows us to give it the amount of timing that it needs for that chamber design and to optimize power production without hurting it. Now, we'll talk about why that's not possible under boost. If guys would want me to run this kind of, like an air-fuel spread would be fine under boost. If we run low boost, the lower the boost that we run, the bigger the spread that we can make both with, or that we could test both in air fuel and timing. Obviously, having high octane fuel would make that better also, E85 or race gas. And we would, to make things easy, we would use the same air fuel number on the gas scale for both of those fuels. You just have to supply more E85 to make that happen because the stoic number is different. But we would run roughly the same amount of air fuel, if you will, with those two fuels. But we would never run a boosted motor at 13 to 1. We've run lots of them in the low 12s. I've even run some of them in the mid 12s. More often, that would be on a centrifugal supercharged motor. As it's coming up in boost, it only has 2 or 3 pounds down low. You can easily run 12.2, 12.3, 12.4 there, and then start putting more fuel in it, 11.8, 11.7, as it starts making boost and starts making power. With turbocharged stuff, I don't do that. I would want to, and because I would run so many runs and run so many tests and so many different boosted things, and I'm asking that usually of some worn, tired, Ritchie rebuilt junkyard motor, that I usually am fairly conservative on that. So we would stay in the 11s, 11.8 when we're making the last spicy run or whatever to get a big power number. But it would always be in the 11s, 11.5, 11.2, 11.4, whatever. And we'd always run that. So that's kind of where we would be. We could do a tune on a turbo motor from, say, 9.5 to 11.5 or 10 to 11.5, just so we don't get into misfire. But the nice thing about the turbo deal and misfire is if we're going to run a spark plug that's going to be some cold plug, an 8 or 9 or 10, it's going to have no gap in it. It's going to have 19 or 20 thousandths gap in it. It's probably not going to get misfire. We have an overabundance of ignition energy, especially on the LS. So that's probably not going to happen. You just want to make sure that it doesn't get really rich under decel and take care of those things so that it doesn't load the plugs up. But we normally do not have a problem with that. So we could run that kind of spread on a turbo motor, but we could never go into the 12s and certainly not into the 13s. It just wouldn't be a good idea. Now with timing, we have the same kind of limitation on a boosted application. We're not going to go to full NA timing. There would be no reason to do that. It wouldn't be safe. It wouldn't make power, and it will more than likely blow up. So none of those are good reasons. I'm fairly conservative on timing values too, only because we don't have knock sensor technology and I don't know what that is. And also I don't really care. I care way more about making the power that we need to make and having the motor still be alive. That's why the Bonneville Civic, like this one, that's why this thing was such a big success, is because I didn't take my B series motor that everyone wants to rev to 10,000 RPM. I didn't do that. I went to 8,500, actually 8,600, maybe 87 on the 4/5 shift just to get the RPM up so that when we went into fifth gear, it would be pulling. It had a big split in fourth and fifth gear. So I ran fourth gear higher than the others. The other ones didn't have any load anyways, because fourth gear was the only time I was able to go at the very top of fourth gear is the only time I was able to go to full throttle. So all the others were just part throttle, revving up in RPM and gaining vehicle speed. Fourth gear at the very top, I was able to massage full throttle and then shift into fifth. And again, we're just generating vehicle speed and engine speed for the shift. And fifth gear puts us post VTEC. So we're at a point where it's making power. It's on the secondary cam. It has boost on the 72 millimeter turbo that we were using, and then is able to pull fifth gear all the way up. And we weren't going to, I don't think we went 8,500 in that one. I don't think we're anywhere near that. But low RPM, we ran fairly low boost. We never ran more than 16 or 17 pounds. Timing was safe. It was in the teens. And so it had air to water, ice water intercooling, and it had real high octane fuel. So all of that contributed to the thing being a success. And that's what I do in the engine dyno too. When we're running a turbo motor, 11.5 is going to be safe. The timing, if it's low boost, which I run a lot of stuff on, 7, 8, 10 pounds, that can be, depending on what the NA number is, like on an LS, if it wants 29 degrees of total timing NA, I wouldn't be afraid of putting 21, 22, 23 degrees in it. I wouldn't keep running 23 or 24 degrees, even at low boost, because even if there is a gain from that, it just puts me toward the danger zone that I don't care about. If I want more power, I'd rather back it down 2 degrees and then add 2 more pounds of boost. You're going to get a lot more from one of those than you are from the other. And one of them is much less likely to make you detonate. That's one of the keys to doing this on pump gas, is strip the timing out of it and then turn the boost up. That's how guys are making really big power. Also, you make a good NA power. You have the chamber design. There's a lot that goes into that. But that would be the limit. Those would be the limitations trying to do the same thing on turbocharging. And then I got those comments a lot from the previous video that I did on spark plug gap. Oh, you need to do this under boost. No, we understand what's going on under boost. If you're running boost, you need to run low plug gap. You don't try to get more plug gap. We talked about all that last night, so we don't really even need to go into that. But that's our discussion for tonight, and that's why I wouldn't probably do this test on, or if I did do this test, the same kind of tuning test on boost, it would be more difficult to get the thing to be like dead repeatable the way that you would want it to be. And because if you're seeing a variation of 3 or 4 horsepower, it's hard to get the thing within 3 or 4 horsepower run to run on a turbo application anyways. But if we wanted to see big swings, if it was 9 to 1, it was misfiring, we would see that. If we went from 10 degrees up to 20 degrees, we'd see a pretty big change in power, and that would still be safe. So if guys wanted to see that, we could see that. And then that would give you kind of an idea on what would happen. And I've done this video, I think it's up already, on what would happen if you had to run pump gas, because 10 degrees would be a number that you might run on pump gas, especially at fairly higher boost levels. So it would give you an idea on how much power you would lose, because it'd be quite a bit. I mean, it would take away a lot of power going from 20 degrees down to 15 or down to 10. We saw that already even on the NA combination. So let's see what you guys got going on. It's Monday. Let's see. I'm scrolling back a little bit, see what guys got going on. You like Funyuns? Funyuns are good. So what do y'all think about me doing an ethanol reference nitrous safety setup so I can run a full shot of nitrous unless I can't run a full shot of nitrous unless I have at least 50% ethanol content because I'm at 10.7 to 1. Let's see here. Saul, the 4.8 cam swap, would springs make any difference at high RPM? I don't know how high you would want to rev it. We're already way past the power peak on it with that Truck Norris cam. So there's no reason to try to run it to 7,500 because it's just not going to make power there. I don't know how high the stock springs would go. Although I did right after I did that post, and I'm sure it was in response to this video, that some guy posted something about, oh, don't ever use stock springs because they're high mileage and they're worn out and your tuner will hate you and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, man, you do not understand the people that are out there and what they're doing. So let's see what else. World of cold air right now outside. Yeah, it's cool outside tonight. Not cold like it is in other places in the country, but Mario, you should port your 862 heads, but you should do it yourself though. Stock 60 has a 3622 crank. Yep. We do need to have a poll, right? Good evening. Could you explain how you approach your tune? We've gone over that a whole bunch of times. Which things you set first? When I put a motor up on the dyno and start tuning it, we take all of the timing out of it. Not all of it. If it's an LS and we know it's an NA LS, it's going to want 29 or 30 degrees. We may start at 22 or 23. And then we start tuning fuel. We put in a map that luckily we have lots of things to start out with because we have a whole bunch of files that we've done stuff with. I have stuff that I've started out with. And honestly, if I have something that I've started out with, it'll be easy for me to get it really close. But if we're not close and we're starting out, what we do is start it and see how it runs and then see how if it does start and run, which they usually do, it doesn't take too much fuel to get it to do that. And then we will free rev it a little bit and see, oh, it's going lean. It wants more fuel. And I would just grab the whole table and I'll add, I call them clicks. I'll add 10 or 20 clicks. I just put a bunch of fuel in it because I know that even if I put too much fuel in it, it's still going to work really well at 11 to 1, even 10 to 1. So I don't care about that. I'd rather have it be that than it be 15 to 1 or 16 to 1. So put a bunch of fuel in it. So then we start load. So I'll set the dyno at, let's say we have a starting point of 2,500 RPM. So I'll adjust the knob, 2,500. We'll just start rolling in the throttle to see how it likes the roll in and the transition. Oh, it's lean there. So we'll put a bunch of fuel there. Oh, it's too rich there. We'll take away fuel there. And then we'll get it so that it will take a load at that RPM. It goes all the way up to wide open throttle. Hey, look, it's 12.2. It's fine. Or it's 10.0 or it's 11. Anywhere in the safe zone is fine. And then we'll do that at 3,000 and 3,500 and 4,000. And once we have a fairly good idea of where that's going, we'll make a sweep. Low timing, usually too much fuel. We'll make a sweep. Oh, look, it's in the 11s everywhere. It's fine. Then we'll start taking fuel away. So then I'll start going, oh, look, I have to take away 4 clicks here and 2 here, and I'll just try to even it out so that it's, let's say that it was, 11.0 and then 12.2 and then 11.8 and 10.0. And so I get them so that those are all fairly well balanced. That way, then I could just go in and change everything. So then it's 11.0 and then I'll take fuel away. And now it's 11.5. Now it's 12.0. Now it's 12.5. And then we usually stop there. Then go, okay, now we're going to add timing. So now it's at, 18 degrees ramping into 22 or 23 degrees. So grab all that. We'll add 2 degrees everywhere. Okay. And then we'll make another pull. Oh yeah. Like that. It's making more power. Okay. And then we'll add 2 more degrees. Oh, like that. It's making more power. And we'll keep doing that until it gets up to, on an LS, it's going to get up to 29 degrees or 30 degrees. And that's where it's going to end at. And then we'll do the final things with, it wants a little bit here, a little bit there. And really it's just nitpicking, because as we saw in the test, going from 12.5 to 12.2 or 1 or whatever, it does nothing to power. So we're just making ourselves feel better by adjusting that curve, having the graph be a nice graph when somebody else comes and looks at it. Oh, look at the 3D graph. You did a nice job on that. It's nice and smooth. It's all interpolated. It doesn't do anything to power, but that's how we do it. My builder took my Ross pistons, milled the domes off to make flat tops for my 514. Looked it up. Bob Glidden done this the same. To gain horsepower, I can't run pump gas on this motor. Would boost work with compression? There would be a fine line where you took compression away and gained power. That could happen if you improve the flame travel dramatically, if the dome was in the way of stuff, and I've seen that happen. We've had that happen on Honda stuff. But if you knocked a bunch of compression out of it, then you can run boost on it. You could have with boost anyway. It's just how much octane you would have available to you. Just got done tearing down one of the 125 dirt bike engines. Cool. What's a good timing sweep? I don't know about in the car. Probably a peak of 24 or 25, and I would put it down at 17 or 18 at the start, probably at wide open throttle, and just see what happens. At low engine loads, I don't do tuning at low engine loads. So my stuff is all wide open throttle. Would you recommend saving up for Terminator X or use HP tuners? I have no experience with HP tuners. Lots of guys have done stuff with it. And I think that there are programs that you can get. Matt has stuff in his tune cabinet that you could get that would probably get you really, really close, and it probably would run. The Terminator X works. So does the HP and the Dominator that we've used on them. John, what are you doing? You did that last night or this morning or sometime. You don't need to do that, man. Just ask a question. I'll switch my combo from twin 7875s to twin 3582s. So more like 1,000 horsepower instead of 2,000 horsepower. That's a big trade. And actually 3582s might do a little more than that. I tested a Gulf smog pump on 24 volts. It'll push 4 psi with enough flow for 10 or 11 horsepower, but it'll overheat after 10 seconds. I don't think I would leave it on for any more than 10 seconds. I honestly don't think that this one, I haven't tried it with 24 volts, so I don't think that this smog pump that I have from the Ford is going to flow enough. What setup would you run it in the quarter to hit 9s? What vehicle are you doing it in? Is it a Mustang? Is it a Camaro? What is it? Making enough power to run 9s is not hard at all. That's a wrecking yard motor with a cam and an S475 turbo. That's really, really simple to make the power to do that. The other part of it, I think, is the hard part and the more expensive part. The transmission is going to be one of the things. Maybe a Turbo 400 would do that, a built one or something. You're going to need a good rear end. You're going to need good brakes. You're going to need, traction to hook that up. The lighter the car, the easier those other things become. can the big domes on big block Chevys cause power losses? I don't think so. We run domes, like all of the big blocks that I've put together have all had domes on them. The exception are some of the stock ones that came with flat tops, the way that they came from the wrecking yard. We've run those a lot. I haven't run any, I don't think I've run anything bigger than I think we put a 47 dome in something in one of the NA deals that I did. I can't remember which one it was. Most of them are 18 or 20. 18 to 22 is kind of the range for most of the stuff. Any system that doesn't have self-tuning is not worth investing in. What's the best way to tune the timing without a dyno and a graph? There should be lots of information online on what kind of curve that you should have in there. Yeah, Dan, the small chamber and less dome is always preferred in power production. Did you say something the other day about a CFM test coming up? I already tested carburetors and head flow. Maybe I was talking about. Have you ever played with the 500cc NHRA Pro Stock engines? No, I don't think I'm trying to remember if the guys at West Tech have ever run. They have a couple of old Pro Stock motors there that have been on display for decades. I guess. I think that these are 80s or 90s Pro Stock motors probably. Because I think that they have the Pro Stock Pontiac heads on them, maybe. I don't know if I've seen any current ones there. Here in Houston, they just made 1,500 horsepower on a stock LSEC with HP tuners. I don't see why that wouldn't be easy to do. I mean, all you're doing is asking it to supply the air, fuel, and the timing. And as long as you can control that big of an injector and have it make 20 degrees of timing or whatever is needed, 1,500 horsepower is just the turbo and the engine doing the stuff. Casey, thank you very much. Did you get your stuff yet? I may not have arrived yet. What is your opinion on Cerakote? Is that the stuff that they put on headers? Stock bottom end LQ9, I'd probably need to stay under 1,300 horsepower. I don't know if those turbos will do that. The most effective is a very slight dish. Any guidance on how to trim the dome on a big block to work with the AFR 265s? We had to do that too, and we've had to do that on a number of AFR heads. I think particularly big blocks. And I can't remember if I know that we used we had to use like a porting tool to do it. We used a grinder, but I can't remember if we took some off of the the protrusion on the head, or if we took some off of the piston. No wonder the Gen 2 LT1 was the most powerful production small block. Bold words. John, much appreciated. So you're trying to make 800 wheel horsepower through a manual trans, my C4, and not on 93, 85 setting. I feel like twin 62s would do it justice. Twin 62s would be enough to do 800. I'm scared to get into injection laptop tunes. Richard, what was the HP tuners question? I didn't have a HP tuners question. One of the final pieces I need for my 5.3 single turbo is injectors. Suggestion for a very simple 625 wheel horsepower build. The 80-pound injectors, the Deca stuff is kind of the go-to deal for that sort of power range. Quench or no quench? I don't think no quench is a good idea. It can be used on piston crowns and combustion chambers of the cylinder head. I think I've seen coated pistons. You might want to ask Dan. If they're not using it in cup stuff, I know that they've tested it. I've never done a back-to-back test of a coated piston or a coated chamber versus an uncoated one, because as you might imagine, that test regimen would be fairly difficult. But I'm sure that at the level that the motors that he was testing, they probably tried that. Yeah, John, I think you'll have a lot of fun with those turbos on that combination. They angled milled my heads. Oh, for the combustion, I mean for the compression. Piston in the Honda Z50R that I just rebuilt had a slight dome. I have VE tuning only. I don't like that as well. I did a bunch of that with the fast, and it just, I know that it mirrors the torque curve, but it seems wrong to me to have a declining fuel supply. This is oddly specific. What's your favorite NA302 carb combo that's not the Boss 302? Why can't I pick the Boss 302? That would be my choice for any sort of stock carbureted 302, certainly. Although I would like to have anymore, I'd like to have an Autolite inline carburetor on a crossbox intake manifold, because it's just so, there's so much coolness there. I don't know that I've ever run. I've not run any high horsepower stuff. The 363 that I did was a pretty good carbureted one. It had a funnel web intake manifold on it and probably a 950, and had a decent sized camshaft in it. I think the guys at MPG did it. Cam Research Core is their name. And it had dart heads on it, or airflow heads or something, some sort of good head on it. And it did pretty well. It's designed to create a thermal barrier to allow for greater chamber temperatures over longer periods. Yeah, Dan, we're asking. Ginger Squatch was asking, I think, about piston coating. So if you've tried piston coatings at tops of pistons, you quit doing it. The skirts were coated for less friction. The sides I've seen a lot. I've even seen the OEMs doing that. That's fairly common. But the coatings on the top of the pistons, I know that the coating companies were promoting that and saying, yeah, look, you're not putting the heat into the piston, it's all going out the exhaust. But I don't know that. I'd figured that the cup guys had tried that. All 5.4, 6.8 modular Ford engines pistons sit 125 below the deck. All of them do that? Oh, we don't have a poll yet. That's right, huh? This says engage your audience, start a Q&A, answer questions live. I think we're kind of doing that, right? So we need a poll. So my poll is, what should the poll be? I asked because I plan to do a road racing course with my built 97 Honda Civic Coupe. I do like Honda Civic Coupes. I had a 99. That's what this was. Wow. That was it. That was an SI though. Um, somebody come up with a poll idea for me. GTA, what are you doing? My 05 Tahoe Bone Stock 5.3 has a Magnuson TVS 1900. Cool. I really wish that I had a blower like that on my truck, but I wish I had a different transmission. Added to it a Yukon Gear 411s. You know a shop in Georgia, Tennessee to tune it after a 20% reduction in pulley being added. No, but if it was tuned fairly well before, just going up in boost, it might already be okay. When we do tunes on the dyno, we don't tune it just at the boost level that it's at. Once we have a fairly good idea of that's why I usually run them NA. So if I have a good idea on what the NA is, and then we have a good idea of what some other boost level is, like let's say 7 pounds, we kind of know what it needs to be after that. And so we put in values so that if we go from 7 pounds to 10 pounds, it's always the thing of like, okay, now we've scaled that up. Now let's see how good we are. let's see how good of a tuner you are, Richard. So then we try at 10 pounds and then we see if what we want is at 7 pounds, we're producing some kind of air fuel curve. And then at 10 pounds, what we want it to do is, since we've already put the numbers in there, we want it to duplicate the air fuel curve that it did at 7 pounds. And then we want it to go up in successive steps at every boost level. They may have done that. I don't know, because I don't know who did the tuning for your Magnuson. It had to have some kind of tune. And if it came from Magnuson, more than likely, they probably already have the ability to go up and boost. Let's see. Has anyone had any luck unbricking an LS ECU? So what is that? Or is that where you take it apart and is it potted or something that you're taking off there? I'm not all hip on the bricking stuff. Richard, I'm wanting to be competitive in a no prep racing. 1500 seems to be the norm, but also don't want to get the point of blowing the motors up every week. They do that often. Steven, 400 horsepower is only happen at the very top of the RPM range with a 302. 400 horsepower is not hard to get with a 302. That's just the right combination of stuff. We have some videos up on 300 or 400 horsepower 5-liter stuff. That's heads, cam, and intake if you pick the right ones. AFR 195s, like Ark is saying, is more than enough flow to get you there. It's more like enough flow to get to 500. So with the good camshaft in it and the right intake manifold, you should be there. I do need a frosty cold beverage. Nitrous question: is it better to run a plate on wet nitrous or a nozzle? So what Daniel, tell me what you're trying to run it on, and the thing that you choose is going to be dictated by what you're trying to run it on. Is 30,000's ring gap enough for 300 shot? Yeah, it's more than enough. We've run 300 shots on no ring gap. I don't recommend it, but 30 would be plenty. 4.5, 450 something diff for 1/8 mile, 500 diff for 1/4 mile, 3 something diff for daily driver, 2 something diff for top speed. So you guys used Swain back in the day. Is Swain still around, Dan? Do you know? I remember using those way back. Taj, I agree with that. His comment was seems to be that a more advanced electromechanical carburetor could exist nowadays that combines carb love with the function and more advanced like solenoid controls of passages. It would be like an even better feedback carburetor. What I would want out of my Quadrajet, if I could have it, would be feedback control based on like an O2 sensor that could get the thing to run like at 15 to 1, and then it would also shut off the idle passages under decel, so that it didn't feel overfueled during decel. And I think once you did that, the rest of the stuff actually works fairly well. I have a 2000 Mustang GT adding a single turbo, exhaust headers merged together into a hot side turbo. That's all good. The exhaust goes through a single pipe exhaust. Wait, I skipped in. Where am I going? Where am I going? What does one do with the 4 original sensors? We're still running the factory ECU, I'm taking it. And you're not, it sounds like it's not going to have cats on it anymore, right? And so you're not going to have a pre-cat and a post-cat. You have to do something to trick the secondary ones, I'm guessing. A bricked ECU means that the flash failed and the ECU is no longer recognized. Oh, okay. A 6-liter sloppy stage 3 camshaft. $400 horsepower, 1 bar boost, get to 800. That's the right kind of math. That's boost math. I put 30 gaps on all my rings. So let's see what do I have coming up. Got to do a quick poll here. Oh, here we go. I want to click on the start a question and answer period. I kind of want to see what happens there. I want to see if it changes something. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the question is, do you want to see the Truck Norris versus the Truck Norris NSR cam test video tomorrow? And you only have a couple of minutes to answer, so I'd be really quick. And we're up and running. How much does compression affect engine wear? I don't know. I don't think it would be a lot. Are you thinking that, like, if we went from 9 to 1 to 10 to 1, will it make the motor not last as long? I don't think it will. How does tuning hurt miles between rebuilds? Tuning would be critical for that, because if you overfuel, you're going to wash the walls down, the rings are going to wear out, the piston's going to wear out, the bore's going to wear out. One of the things that helps us with modern engines is that the cylinders really don't wear that much. Trying to get my 2004 Colorado to 520 at 140 in the 8th. That's moving pretty good. Richard, what are you handing out for trick-or-treaters? Gapping gauges? Little gapperoni? Have you ever done anything with roller style cams? Like roller bearing cams, you mean? Or Main or Torrington thrust? The on the fronts of them we have, but I didn't really see a benefit from that. Eric, when I do complete engine rebuild on these small pit bike engines, I charge $450. Does that sound like too much? I don't know. I have no idea what the market is for that. GTA Nation, could you please see the question on my second super chat? What was the? Did I miss it? Do we have to go back? Oh, one more question. Okay, sir, I skipped right by it. I don't know how I went by it. I'm glad you pointed that out. One more question, sir. On my 05 Tahoe 5.3 with the Magnuson, is it accurate or false that I should not add a stage 2 or stage 3 cam to the blower setup? If you add a camshaft, I'm assuming that you have a stock camshaft in there now in your 05, which is going to be an LM7 or something like that. Might be a little bit different on an 05. It'd be cool if it was an LC9, but you should put a camshaft in it, because a camshaft, if you have a stock camshaft in there now and you put in any kind of camshaft, I wouldn't put a stage 3 in. I would put something smaller than I put a stage 1 or a stage 2, especially if it's a daily driver. And I would be a little concerned about whatever transmission you have. But I definitely would put a camshaft in it, but you are going to need to have it tuned if you do that. Because a camshaft, even in a naturally aspirated deal, is definitely going to require a change in tune. If you put a camshaft in your blower motor, you're going to pick up some power. I don't think that this is directed at me, but what do you do to prove you're getting top-notch gas atomization? I don't know. I would look at the air-fuel ratio. When will we see Magnum content again? I do need to test more Magnum stuff. I need to get that thing going. It's just kind of sitting there right now. So hose clamp, you got a 351 is it a 400 or a 351M or 400M? 330 horsepower, 450 before, 344, 475 after chassis. So they threw the tune on her, right? Tuned her all up. Sniper EFI. So is that the 4-hole throttle body deal? I don't know about 1300, John, on those 3582s. I haven't run them all the way out to see what they would be like on a small motor. I was thinking, I always thought of 3582s as 500 at the tire kind of things. So I was thinking like 600, but it might be a little more than that. Is there a way to test the 85 from the pump to check the ethanol content? Yeah, you can. There are like test kits for that. I don't ever do that, but there are. Have you ever worked with herringbone cut gears on manual transmission? Nope. $10.49. Sorry, I'm late. I had to cut up 442 headlight brackets because the customer wants halos. He cut up the stock ones? I thought that was sacrilegious. Suggestions for a valve setup on my Vortec head so I can run a bigger cam, my L31. The valves are not the problem, right? The guides are the problem. Normally you have to cut the guides down. And then I think on the Vortex, maybe they cut the seats too so they can put a good spring in it. What kind of cam do you think you need to make power at 8,000 RPM? You need a really stable one. Host Climb, I'm glad you got the 400 running. That's definitely other guys' stuff, and I salute you. That that's awesome. And if it's driving around and doing well, that's like just icing on the cake. No herringbone, just houndstooth. Good interior. How does a returnless fuel system affect injector tuning? It doesn't for us. We run it both ways on the engine dyno, and it doesn't change it at all. As long as the fuel pressure is consistent. Salvador, the Boosted Boys got 840 out of the GT35 82R. That's got to not be one of these knockoff ones. That has to be a real Garrett one then, right? Dave, you have to cut the guides and the spring seats. Okay, that's what I thought on the Vortex stuff. I thought Comp or somebody sold a cutter that does both of those at the same time. They're retiring the McRib. Oh, the nation can't handle that too. Oh, a GTX 3582 RK. That's a real one, yeah. I know you've done Big Bang stuff on a Gen 4 made 1500-ish. Do you think that's reliable at that level? I don't think so. I honestly, I don't think. I mean, guys are out running. I think they're running stock bottom ends probably at that, but I don't know how much and how many runs they're expecting out of them. I don't know that I would run the motor that we had on the dyno at that power level. I think I would do it at 1,000, but I don't know about 1,500. And I don't know how, if I was really doing a 1,500 horsepower drag race motor, I think it would have better parts in it. Yeah, Daryl, your math is solid with a turbo, but not with a supercharger, because a supercharger won't double it at that boost level. You have to subtract the parasitic loss associated with driving the supercharger, whether it's a roots blower, a centrifugal supercharger, twin screw, whatever. It's not going to do what a turbo does. A turbo will get you there with that boost level, but the other stuff will not. Are the Comp Gold Rockers the old Crane Golds? I don't know if they're exactly the same or not. You would think that. I know that the Crane Golds were so popular that I know that that's why the guys from Comp had their own version, but I don't know if they're exact duplicates or not. Do you have a cam recommendation for a stock 2001 Tahoe? That's going to have a lot of miles on it with the 5.3 for a bit of added power. The Torque cam from Brian Tooley Racing or the Truck Norris cam, both of those would be good. That's my plan to upgrade the internals, but use a stock block. I think 1500 is getting, or or might even be past the limit of the stock block. Also, I think most guys that are in that range are probably thinking like LSX blocks or stuff. 1300, you should be able to make lots of runs at 1300. Love my Crane Cobra 1.7s. Crane. That's who did all of the letter cams for the Ford stuff too. And getting a flange elbow or other T4 outside. I think you asked this last night on a GT45. I see that it lists T3, T4. Does it mean it fits both the T3 and T4? It won't fit both. It only fits one or the other. And if it's a GT45, the chances are very strong that it's a T4. What they do is probably list T3 and T4 so that they get more hits on it. Previously, you mentioned you pull timing on LS around the peak torque to help them stay together on the big bang motors. Would you do the same on a twin turbo 6-liter and a flat bottom drag boat? Yes. I'm assuming, is it a jet boat or is it a prop boat, like a V drive? Richard, have you seen TSP's new Mad Max cam? 228, 232, but only 550 lift. I haven't seen that. Richard, my Civic build's in the memory of my father that passed away September 27th. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I want to keep making him proud, even though he's no longer with us. That's cool. So did you say it's a road race car? Because that's my jams. I ran my Del Sol in Motorola Cup and US Touring, which is, I think there's a picture of it somewhere. Oh, there's one right here. David Davis, when adding boosted motors is always a rule of thumb to go to colder plugs. We normally do, but if you're running 4 or 5 pounds, I've run more on stock plugs. Cody, shame on you hitting the no. It's a prop boat with a V drive. Okay. I don't know what RPM it spools up to when you hit it at the line or at the rope, as it were. I don't know what the RPM range is like in that. I've been using HP tuners to tune my truck for a couple of years. Are there any advantages of using EFI Live or Holly Management? Can anybody answer that? I don't know if not being a tuner and not doing that out on the street, I don't really know. What kind of Magnum are you talking about? This one over here? That's a pellet gun. I thought you were talking about the 360 Magnum that I have down at West Tech, the Dodge junkyard motor. What is the comparison between an inline 6 and a V6 motor? I don't have two to compare very equally. I have some of those up already. 3800 versus the 4200 and stuff. Some of those videos are already up. The Mad Max is their max effort low lift cam that can be used with the LS3, LS6 spring. Curious to see how it would be compared to Sloppy Stage 2. Probably pretty close. I don't remember what the specs were now. I can tell you what it's going to do. I'm scrolling. 228, 232. Yeah, it's going to be pretty comparable to the sloppy cam. Might be a little softer up top from not having the lift. Yeah, you don't have to. Somebody's mentioning coolant lines on the turbos. We don't normally run the coolant lines, although we will on the 2.2-liter turbo on the Dodge one. So, do you want to see the Truck Norris versus Truck Norris NSR cam test video tomorrow? 87% are saying yes. How are there people that say no to that? You guys are. Oh, and as a bonus for all the 87 percenters and not the 13 percenters, you guys don't even get to see it. You guys are cut off. I'm also going to throw in the Red Hot cam, the Brian Tooley Racing Red Hot cam. Because, 2 cams are better than 1. Uh, 12 gauge shotgun is basically a pellet gun too. It just throws out more pellets at one time. Is that what it is? I know you just did the Red Hot cam on a 5.3. Would it be a good cam for a 6.0? I don't think for a race motor. I don't think that would be my choice, especially not a turbo one. Maybe they're saying no because they want to see it tonight. So I should just stop what I'm doing and work on it right now. And we're going to close out our poll because, you had enough time to vote. There's more people here than we have votes. So some people are not voting. More on the 455. That needs to be put back together. And you know if it's true that Holly's not making carbs in 2023. That's blatantly false. The gentleman that started that fake rumor has already apologized to Holly for that. The hot cam also, they use it for positive or centrifugal supercharger cam. High voltage. I just got home from the drag strip running my new build. Awesome. I was extremely impressed with the masthead and a 242 cam motion that were spec'd by them. Steve's good people over there. Kind of think of it, Aston Martin's making a new DB4 with an old inline 6-cylinder motor. I don't have Aston Martin money. Dan wants his budget Rolls-Royce motor. There you go, Barry. I don't vote if I have no idea what the answer is. I always vote yes if it's about more testing. Do you think I could run a carb on a BTR equalizer manifold? Sure. Isn't the lid removable on that? I don't think it's going to work very well, but I want to see a twin 58 millimeter turbo build. What size are the 3076s? Dave, thank you for setting that straight. Were you talking about the inline 6-cylinder stuff? Do you think stock Pontiac rods will hold 500 horsepower? Yes. There's a point where we're going to a bigger camshaft won't add any more power. Yeah, if you take a look at the Tom, if you want to see an example of that, take a look at the video that I have up, the 175 horsepower cam swap. We went with a 240, 246 cam, I think, and then we went to a 246, 254 camshaft, and this was on a 408, so and with good heads and a good intake and stuff on. So you think if anything, it would benefit from it. But when we went to the bigger cam, all we did was lose power down low. So you can put the wrong camshaft in there. There is such a thing as the wrong cam. Oh, Holly Carbs about that's not a real thing. they're not going to stop making carburetors. They sell thousands and thousands and thousands of carburetors. Is the 455 a myth? All hyped up? What do you mean? Does it? I don't know what the myth is. Do you think my final iteration of a single cam could make 1,000 horsepower if we're able to partner with a machine shop to create a billet D16 engine? I don't think that's the limitation. I think head flow probably would be your limitation. I said the 455 is a Hemi killer. I think stock for stock, the 455 GS was probably the equal of I think lots of those cars probably ran about the same. I think a LS6 and a GS Stage 1 car and a Hemi Cuda or Challenger or whatever it was. And I'm not talking about any of the lightweight deals or the specialty race versions or whatever. I'm talking about one that you would get if you just went and bought it from the dealership. I think probably a lot of those were not as fast as people think that they were. I think there's probably a lot more 14-second cars than there were 11 or 12-second cars. .440 would give Hemis a good run in the real world. I think a Hemi had to be like perfect and right to run really well. I want to do a 5.3 with twin 3071s. Okay. We have 37. I have 3076s that we're going to run, and we'll definitely run it on a 5.3. So I'm back on the billet 4V heads for a 6.2. Casey, did your buddy's dad's ex-roommate have a Duntov cam in it and jump Coke cans? So this will be the last one for today. Wonder what Richard could do with a Mercedes C63 AMG W205 twin turbo motor. Well, we already know what they do. Whatever they do stock, and then we turn them up and make more boost, right? Maybe it's better to ask after the NSR video comes out. Well, the NSR video, one NSR video is already out. Bobby, thank you very much. That's not necessary, but always welcome, and thank you very much. The NSR, we already tried the NSR cam on the 4.8 with the stock springs. People have asked a lot about, okay, what happens if I do spring upgrades? I guess Brian was right when we were having our conversation about people wanting the Truck Norris cam with springs. They all seem to be gravitate towards springs. I thought that everybody would want just the cam. You could just put the cam in and keep the stock springs and run it that way and go out and have fun. I didn't try it. I don't think I tried it on the 4.8. I'm almost positive that thing will go to 7,000 with the cam that's in it and the springs are in it. It'll be past the power peak, but I'm pretty sure it will rev to 7,000. And so putting more spring in isn't going to do anything. In fact, I have a video up on springs, and if you put stiffer springs in, it costs you power. So is the no spring and no spring camshaft, a better choice? Camelback to slapper bars. Okay. And on that note, it's time to go. I've been here a long time. Thank you guys all for showing up. I guess if you're here and back tomorrow morning, I will see you guys all tomorrow morning. And obviously now I have to do the NSR camshaft because we had a poll on it. So we have to make it official. Pow! And we're done.